Hey everyone, Parsi here. In this video I'll be talking about my predictions for the various political leanings of the characters that make up the roster of Mario Kart Double Dash. If you disagree with any of my following statements, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm always happy to hear other opinions. As a disclaimer here, it's worth noting that I don't actually know anything about politics. The closest I've gotten to a political education was probably an economics class I took 5 years ago, so this should be interesting. So first up, we have Mario. Now, I feel like Mario is probably center-right. He's a mama's boy at heart, and as a result, he mostly follows the ideals set by his parents, both of whom were Bible-thumping conservatives. Although Mario is slightly more progressive than his parents, I don't imagine he'd ever vote for a non-Republican candidate outside of rare occasions where he likes the Libertarian candidate a little bit more. He usually stays quiet in political discussions, and he doesn't post anything about politics on social media as he feels it should be more of a personal matter. Okay, so next we have Luigi. Luigi looks up to his brother and best friend Mario, so he usually goes with whatever Mario says. However, deep down inside, he feels that some of his brother's views are a little outdated, especially after Mario had a little too much to drink one Thanksgiving and ranted about how allowing gay people to get married was quote-unquote unfair. Now, being somewhat bi-curious himself, Luigi was both surprised and hurt by his older brother's statements, and he secretly started voting for liberal candidates from that point onward. Next up on the list is Princess Peach. No surprise to anyone, Peach is a strong authoritarian monarchist. However, she does not subscribe to absolutism in that she still follows all the laws upheld by her legislature and citizens. Thankfully, Peach is truly selfless and has a strong moral compass, so her people do not suffer from said authoritarianism because she legitimately cares about their well-being. Her best friend, Daisy, has some other ideas. Princess Daisy secretly resents her friend Peach for having so much control over resources in the Mushroom Kingdom and not using it for her advantage. She subscribes to a more absolutist and imperialistic perspective. Daisy sees the power that Peach holds and hates that Peach hasn't taken a more aggressive approach in controlling Bowser's antics. Peach refuses to attempt to take back territory controlled by Bowser, claiming that the needless deaths would far exceed any benefit to the Mushroom Kingdom. Daisy doesn't see Bowser's minions as people, clearly contributing to her disagreement with her selfless friend. After facing years of repeated head trauma caused by Mario's constant beatings, Yoshi's IQ lies somewhere in the high 70s, which places his mental age just above the average kindergartner. When he isn't dining on crayons, he usually just lolls around waiting for Mario to tell him where to go. He doesn't really understand politics, but his partner Birdo is a heavy social advocate, so she drags him to the polls at every election. He usually votes for the Green Party candidates because green's his favorite color. Birdo isn't very concerned with economics, but she's a strong left-wing social progressive. The reason for this is because she has faced a lot of backlash for coming out as transgender back in 1985. Her introduction to the Mushroom Kingdom simultaneously misgendered and dead-named her, stating verbatim, "Birdo thinks he is a girl and spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta." We can only hope that future installments of this game will recognize Birdetta for who she truly is. As to be expected, Baby Mario and Baby Luigi are both apolitical, but their parents were criticized after taking them to political rallies and dressing them in clothing covered in right-wing rhetoric. This is one of the reasons why Mario wears a red hat. I have a feeling Baby Mario would be against the annexation of Yoshi's Island into the Mushroom Kingdom because he was saved by Yoshi's, but as we saw, he eventually became more pro-government with his allegiance to the Republican Party. Toad is a free-market libertarian, and he has left-leaning social views. He strongly believes in the concept of self-governance and that anyone should be able to do anything they want as long as all participants are consenting adults. He also describes Toadette as his trad wife, which she has no problem with. We will now see why that is. Toadette thinks Ben Shapiro is cute and follows everything he says to a T. She describes herself as just barely right of center, but, like Ben Shapiro, most of her peers describe her as much more conservative in both economic and social terms. She's very pro-life and thinks married women shouldn't work. In her words, it builds strong family values in children. Being Bowser's minions, Koopa and Paratroopa are banned from expressing any political beliefs that deviate from those upheld by the King Koopa's authoritarian regime. They were born into this regime, and they know no other way of life. However, when they saw a group of toads playing in a meadow, they wondered how someone could be so happy. They're also very pro-life for some reason. Donkey Kong is a free market anarchist. He believes the government has absolutely no right to be involved in the economy, and that voluntary interactions of people exchanging goods and services will self-regulate. His opinions were swayed when Bowser stole all of his bananas back in January 2008 because there was no system in place to control theft in his neighborhood. Diddy Kong tells his friends he's a Marxist, but he just likes to feel the attention it gives him. He doesn't know too much about the economy, and he just wants to feel loved. This became especially difficult for him when he opened up to his uncle, Donkey Kong, about some feelings he started having for another boy in class. Unfortunately, Donkey Kong tried to send his poor nephew to conversion therapy because, quote, if it worked for Milo Yiannopoulos, it will work for you. Diddy managed to backtrack and convince his uncle that it must just be a phase, but deep inside, Diddy knew his feelings were there to stay, and he was utterly heartbroken. Bowser is a fascist. Being one of the younger members of the Double Dash team, Bowser Jr. is still figuring out his identity. He's clever enough to see through his father's rampant propaganda and begin reading about other political ideologies to see which ones he agreed with the most. He's careful to hide this from his father, of course, because Bowser Jr. doesn't want what happened to Koopa Kid to happen to him. You see, Bowser caught Koopa Kid reading a copy of the Communist Manifesto, which, as you could probably guess, didn't sit well with the Iron-Fisted King. No one knows what happened to Koopa Kid after that, but honestly, I don't think anybody wants to. Like Toad, Wario is a libertarian. As you can probably guess, Wario doesn't want to lose out on any of his massive wealth through higher taxes for the rich. He doesn't really care about what other people do, as long as they don't bother him. Waluigi votes Democrat because he thinks Nancy Pelosi's hot. PD Piranha is a liberal environmentalist. He wasn't too interested in politics until he saw Mr. Beast's Team Trees video and felt like being an environmental activist was his calling, him being a plant and all. He still uses an iPod Touch, and his wallpaper is a low-res photo of Greta Thunberg. Back in 1963, King Boo was a firm supporter of segregation, and nowadays he just hopes everyone forgets about it.